Now, Donald Trump's unsubstantiated claims of a rigged election have crept into this race for president.
But how pervasive is voter fraud? Local 12's investigative reporter Dwayne Pullman unravels the true picture of fraud at the polls in Ohio.
The rhetoric of a rigged election.
When the system is rigged, people lose hope.
Is calling into question our very voting.
Donald Trump is out there stoking fear.
But does the rhetoric match reality when it comes to fraud at the polls? To find out how pervasive voter fraud is, we came to Columbus and talked with Ohio's Secretary of State.
I am the first one to acknowledge that voter fraud exists, but we've built a very good system to catch people and to prosecute them and to make sure that even though they try to cast a fraudulent vote, that it's not counted.
Ohio Secretary of State John Husted says voter fraud does happen, but that he and his office root it out. To make sure the system is clean for the presidential elections, Husted says his office removed more than 500,000 dead people from Ohio's voter rolls and deleted more than 1 million duplicate registrations.
There are some that slip through. There's no question about that, but when they do, we want people to know that it is a 5th-degree felony and that we will pursue you.
Local 12 News requested and received the Ohio voter fraud reports. In the 2012 general election, 625 votes were reported as irregular. That means the votes should not have been cast. 87 of those cases were right here in Hamilton County, with 8 referred for criminal prosecution. Statewide, 115 cases were referred for prosecution because of evidence that a voter intended to commit voter fraud. 115 cases of real fraud and another 510 voting mistakes. It sounds like a lot, but in the 2012 election, more than 5.6 million ballots were cast in Ohio. In 2014, there were far fewer fraudulent votes, just 12 cases in Ohio where voters were referred for prosecution.
So you can't tolerate voter fraud, but we also shouldn't believe that it's rampant and that it's likely to throw an election.
So as the campaign rhetoric continues, Ohio's Secretary of State says the numbers clearly don't back up the claim that the election is rigged.
Voter fraud are random acts from individual voters, not systemic problems where somebody's really trying to rig or corrupt the system.
Dwayne Pullman, Local 12 News.
The Secretary of State says his biggest concern with any voter fraud is the impact it could have on local races. In the last 3 years, 109 local races and issues in Ohio were either tied or decided by just one vote.
From Local 12,